So today we were met with a little surprise. Overnight we got 1 to 2 inches of snow, which is kind of funny because there was only a 10 to 20% chance of rain. So that started off the morning in a pretty fun way, and it was a beautiful drive leaving the Grand Canyon. So today we moved southeast to continue our cross-country trip. And we went from the Grand Canyon down south east into New Mexico, into Silver City, New Mexico, and the drive was absolutely amazing. And that's one of the things, like, there's a great picture that I think people might take for granted on going cross country, is just how pretty the drive is. There's always something different to look at. There's always something crazy going on, like you're going by this big ginormous thing on the interstate. And then it's just something different to see, different scenery or surroundings. And Jenny and I often remark about how each state has its own little unique characteristic that almost seems to change when you hit the state line. But we had some amazing views. Loved the cows there, and just the road stretched on for miles. And then we went through, it says Gila, but it's really the Gila National Forest, and that was crazy. We were in the middle of nowhere, no cell reception. They'd had all the snow overnight, and many times it was almost like one lane you were driving in, and it was in the 20s, and it was literally in the middle of nowhere, as that last video just showed. And we went for maybe 50 miles and never saw anybody. Then we finally stopped at this little place, bought some honey, and then we were back on the road again. And we finally started to eventually come down kind of out of that national forest and get out of the snow. And eventually it warmed up. It went from being in the 20s to the low 50s once we finally came down out of it. But this was some of my favorite scenery of the entire trip. It didn't really look like you would think New Mexico would look like. It almost had a little bit of a Montana or Wyoming look to it, but then it kind of came back down into the more New Mexico terrain and looked like what you would expect, more desert terrain. And then we eventually made it to our stop for the night. So even though we didn't per se get out and do much, the scenery was amazing, and we had a great day just riding.